To make the dough for cinnamon buns, I'm going to start off with 250 grams of white bread mix. Into that I'm going to mix a tablespoon or 25 grams of caster sugar. That then is going to be mixed with some warm milk. There's about 160 mils of warm milk. Might need a little more, but we'll wait and see. And into that I'm going to put some orange extract. If you've got fresh orange rind, that would be really nice as well. I'm just going to put a couple of capfuls of that, just to give it a little bit of extra flavour. You can mix an egg into it as well, but obviously you need a bit less milk there. So I'm going to mix that in. If you're not sure whether you've got the right amount of liquid, then don't add it all in one go. I'm quite convinced I'm going to need a little bit extra. So what I'm going to do is put some water now in the jug. So if you use the jug you had the milk in, you get some milky water rather than just water. That's going to go around the edges. Now it's exactly the same as making a bread dough for bread rolls or for pizza. You want a soft dough, no dry crumbly bits. By the time you've kneaded in some flour to stop it sticking to the worktop, it's going to dry out a little bit anyway. So once you've got a nice dough, give it a little bit of a stir around the bowl. You should get all of that dough out of the bowl. So you can give it a mix for a minute, and then you need a clean table with some flour sprinkled on it. So put your dough onto your flour, throw it around with a knife before you touch it so that you don't get it sticking to your hands. And then smooth the flour out of your way, so you're only adding the flour that you absolutely need. Then going to knead it for 5 minutes or so. If it gets sticky, dip your hands in the flour or dip the dough in the flour, but pat off any excess flour. And you just keep going on this until it's smooth and stretchy. So it does need a few minutes just to get it nice and elastic. So when kneading the dough, you're bringing it into the center, rotating it, so you're pressing a new section of the dough into the center each time. So you're folding and squashing. So that's had 2 or 3 minutes now. It's not going to need a lot more. I feel it's getting quite bouncy now. So what I'm going to do next is just to wipe a little bit of flour up with it and put it into a clean bowl or into a plate or anything that you can leave it to sit now for half an hour to start rising. And I'm going to cover it so it doesn't get dried out, so I can put cling film over the bowl. While the bread dough's rising, you can get your filling ready. Into a microwavable basin I've put 50 grams of salted butter, 40 grams of soft light brown sugar, or you could use dark brown, and about 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. It's in the microwavable bowl. I'm going to pop it in the microwave on low for a few seconds just before I need to spread it and give it a really good mix together. So nothing for the moment, just have it ready. Once the dough is had about half an hour to relax and rise a bit, put it on a floured surface and use a rolling pin to roll it out. Just check it's not sticking. Turn and roll a bit more. I'm going to make 8 medium-sized buns out of this. You could do 6 larger ones, and just so they'll fit nicely, I've got 2 smallish square tins greased with butter ready to put them in. So once you've got it rolled out enough, I'm then going to get my softened butter and mix it up with my flavours. So once the butter's soft enough, it's not melted, but it is quite soft. It should mix in really easily. And try and get your dough a bit square or rectangular. As long as it's got corners, it should roll up more evenly. And this is then going to be spread with the back of a spoon, which is a lot easier. Get it all off and spread it right to the edges. You don't want any bites of your cinnamon buns without any filling in. So spread it. Should be reasonably thickly spread. There should be just the right amount to fit over your dough. So once you spread it nice and evenly, I'm going to roll it up, and as it's square, it doesn't really matter which side. Now I'm going to sort of pull the corners out. Start by tucking that first end and then lifting and rolling away from you. And if I put the join on top, straighten it up. And like I said, I'm going to do 8 out of this, so I'm going to mark it into 4 and then cut those in half as well. So I've got a sharp chef's knife so I can cut through the dough without squashing it too much. And as we're cutting straight onto the table, when I get near the bottom, I'm just going to press gently. These are then going to go in the tin and rise for another half an hour or so. I think rolling them up, I could have gone a little bit shorter so they would have come out fatter. They're now going to be cling filmed and left to rise. Probably take half an hour to an hour depending on how warm your room is. Once they've risen, I'm going to brush them with beaten egg, and then I'm going to sprinkle them with Demerara sugar, which gives them a nice crunchy top. As they cook, the butter in the filling will melt out. Leave them in the tin for 10 minutes before taking them out, and it reabsorbs the butter. When they're cool, you can then tip them out onto a cooling rack. So they're going to take about 16 to 18 minutes to cook in a 180 degrees oven. So there's the egg, and then just a little sprinkle of Demerara sugar. That's a really rough textured crunchy sugar to go on top. When they come out, they should be risen golden brown, nice and crisp on top. So I'm going to leave them in the tin for 10 minutes and then take them out onto a cooling rack. They can then be drizzled with a little bit of icing if you want to. So I've taken them out onto a cooling rack and I've made up some water icing. There's 2 tablespoons of icing sugar and a teaspoon of cold water. You want it runny enough to drizzle. If it's too thick, you'd need to pipe it rather than drizzle it. If it's too runny, it's going to fall off them. So I put a tray underneath just to catch any drips. I'm just going to trickle it over with a teaspoon. So you don't need a lot. It's for the look of it more than flavour. So that's just enough. You could also do this with melted chocolate. You could flavour your icing with a bit of orange juice or lemon, would be quite nice. And just leave them to cool and set.